In this episode of Over 40 Fitness Hacks, I bring on Dr. Torkil, author of The Pulse Cure, a guide to leveraging heart rate variability, HRV, and gives us beginners in more detail how to really use these types of devices. He goes into what is HRV, tracking the hidden stressors that we're not currently doing right now, and a bunch of different recovery hacks. Now, I thought I knew a lot about the Whoop device and other types of fitness trackers, but of course, someone else comes along who knows a lot more, which is why I love doing this podcast and educates not only myself, but my audience. So if you're interested, stay tuned. How's it going? My name is Brad Williams, and I've been a personal trainer and gym owner for over 15 years. And I specialize in helping you, being over 40, to fight the aging process without giving up your social life. Whether it be rapid weight loss, issues with longevity, any injuries, I've seen and done it all. My mission is to help you get back as close to your former 20-year-old self as you can with the least amount of effort and most efficiency. A great way to see what I'm doing is join my free Facebook group, Over 40 Fitness Hacks. I have a link in the show notes. Let's get on with the episode. Torkil, I just want to thank you for coming on my show. You know, when I first got a podcast pitch of your book, The Pulse Cure, and some of the things you've been doing, talking about all these different fitness trackers. You've listened to some of my episodes. We talked before we started this recording, but I'm real into the Whoop tracker, and just having these stats in live time has just been huge for me to try to get down to more goal weight and using hacks like this so I can have a little fun on weekends. So, I wanted to pick your brain on what else can these things do, because I'm still confused about HRV. I'm confused about all the different stats we're supposed to be looking on these, not just with weight loss, but, longevity. No one wants to have a heart attack. So I heard these things can track that kind of stuff. So my audience always likes to get to know the guests first. So I'll let you take it away with kind of how you got into what you're doing, and then we'll move into the fun stuff.
Yeah, okay, Brad, it's great to be here. And it's one of the few podcasts that actually had an episode on HRV before with Don Moxley, was it?
Yeah.
I'm happy to be hopefully able to explain the HRV, how we can use the wearables to track it. So I'm a general practitioner and emergency physician and an author. So I've written the book, The Pulse Cure, as you talked about, which is actually the world's first guidebook onto how to use these wearables and heart rate variability and connect it to different lifestyle strategies that would give you better well-being and health in the moment, but also increase the chances of living a long and healthy life. So the heart rate variability, that we can have this in the wearables is like having a speedometer for the intensity in our lives. And what's the problem these days with the disease is that 80% of the diseases that we treat as doctors are based from too much stress, a low-grade chronic inflammation. And with heart rate variability, by following our heart rate, we can make sure that we have a stress level that is sustainable with health over time. So, and you probably have found out from your Whoop band that I also used for like 4 years, that there's so much information that the heart can tell you about your system and your level of recovery, your level of strain, that it would be very hard to just guess, yourself. You have probably found out a lot of things about your system, I would guess.
Yeah, like the number one thing this is why I love it, is in live time, how many calories am I burning per day, resting plus active energy, and knowing that before I have dinner at night. So if I had a real lazy Sunday and maybe a few drinks and that kind of stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I know it looks like I'm only going to burn like 1,800 calories for the day. Well, there goes dinner, or maybe just a lean piece of protein and call it quits. Doing that every day, not just guessing on the calculators online what I should be doing each week.
Yeah, and you probably found out that certain foods will stress you more than others, I would guess. Have you found out something?
Yeah, I'm kind of focused on calories. And then because of Don Moxley, focusing on getting my HRV up, which is struggling with that. And I understand, your heart being on a metronome. That's the closer you can get to being on a metronome is the higher HRV score. How to get there, I'm struggling with. But as far as the stress, the stress score that I'm getting from Whoop, I don't know much about it. And should I care? Because in my life, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is weightlifting days. I don't care what this Whoop told me, I'm doing them. So should I not be doing that, or what?
Yeah, we can first maybe explain what heart rate variability is. So what you want to have is a good variation between the heartbeat. So we have the autonomic nervous system, the basis of our nervous system, which is separated into a the sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, and freeze,
Mhm.
the survival mode, and the recovery mode, the parasympathetic mode, when the recovery happens. And the heartbeat will be different in these two modes. And that is how we can use the heart rate variability to detect whether we are in the restful state or in the stressful state, and to which degree. So if we're in the restful state, when we breathe in, the heart rate goes up a little bit because there's more oxygen in the lungs, and the heart will kind of take advantage of that and push through a bit faster. And then when we breathe out and there's less oxygen in the lungs, the heart rate will slow down a little bit to save some energy while there's less oxygen in the lungs. It doesn't really stop, of course,
Mhm.
but it just slows down a little bit measured in milliseconds. But the wearables like Whoop and Garmin will be able to detect that and to see whether you have a sustainable stress balance. And what you want is this variation between heartbeats to be capable of good recovery. And particularly if you're exercising, you want to exercise and make sure that you get the payback for the exercise. Because if you just train and don't allow your body to recover stronger, you're kind of just wasting energy and pushing and not allowing your body to build itself stronger before you go to the next workout. So, but probably 3 workouts a week, as long as you have used to it over years, is probably a good amount of exercise. And I suppose that your Whoop band will give you an estimate of the strain involved in that exercise.
Yeah, so I'll see the strain for that exercise, which I'm okay with. I'm not really watching why I'm straining different parts of the day, which maybe I probably should, but it's kind of hard to remember
That is
doing
what
them.
you should,
Okay.
because that's the key. And the Whoop is okay to do that, but you have to put it in all the details of what you've been doing. But the Garmin watch is way better.
Oh,
So that's the best option, to have the Garmin watch, because then you can see, 7, you can see the stress levels on the graphs, on the curves. And you could identify, for example, that what you were having for lunch was a meal that you couldn't tolerate well. Maybe you had some food intolerance or whatever, and maybe the glass of alcohol ruined your recovery. So what you want to do as an athlete is to spend your energy on recovery and building yourself stronger, and not on alcohol or food you can't tolerate or nicotine or whatever will drain you of your resources without you knowing it. Because most people, when they start tracking their heart rate variability, will identify that there's something that takes their forces away, kind of energy thieves that they wouldn't necessarily think of. That could be things at work. Maybe there's a colleague at work that stresses you, and you would be able, with a Garmin watch, not with a Whoop band, to identify that the meeting with this certain person, from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., for example, stressed me so much more than the meeting with this other person at 3
wow.
o'clock. You would be able to see that in real time. And with the Garmin watch also, you can just push a button and you will see the stress level. So just now my stress level is 34 there, calmed a bit down on a level from 0 to 100. So you'd be able to see your physiological speed in the moment. And you would be then, of course, able to slow down if you find out that you should. So, and particularly as an athlete, you need to take care of what is happening outside the gym.
Yeah.
So we know pretty much about the best athletes. They are as good at recovery as they are at training and lifting and running.
Yeah. And, I talk about that all the time on my podcast, being over 40, cutting down my workouts, because learning about calming that nervous system down. One, zero pain to little pain or soreness, having recovered from a back surgery and that saving my life, doing a lot more breathing and calming down my workouts and recovering well. Like you said, I'm holding a 20-year-old body that I was struggling with in my 30s and even 40s when I started this podcast, and just realizing, God, you got to spend just as much time paying attention to all the stuff like you're saying. But I'll get that strain score, and the only thing I'm really looking at was my workout. Oh, great. I got a real high strain or a high strain for my cardio. And I'm not looking at
Mm,
the rest of the day. I'm not looking at food. That's very interesting. And,
mm,
one moment I do remember, which was pretty funny. My mom came over to help me put up some blinds in the house. And, it took us like an hour and a half to get them all done. It was a fun experience. And then I looked at my strain score and it was through the roof. I'm like,
yeah.
my mom's like, agitating you? I'm like, no, it was fun, but it was strain. So I guess
Mm.
you got to watch
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah. And also that is what, like me and probably most other people think, that as long as it's fun, it doesn't count, it's a strain. But what you find out when you track your heart rate is that you have to count in all the small details as well. Going to the supermarket is stressful for a lot of people. Even if it's fine with being social with friends, it could also be taxing on your system and spending forces that you may want to use after the gym to recover. And getting this insight makes it so much easier to navigate, to see that a certain activity will put so and so load on your system. And of course, for women, the menstrual cycle is also super important, because the week before menstruation for women can be a really tough strain on their systems. That becomes visible in the heart rate variability. And actually, it becomes so hard that I can see that for a lot of women with PMS symptoms, the dip in heart rate variability is as deep as with COVID. So it seems to be as tough as having 1 week of COVID every month.
Wow.
So what you then have to do is you have to regulate the intensity of your workouts according. So maybe you should do more stretching or yoga or so in that week. Make sure that you sleep better, that you don't eat crap food, that you don't use any alcohol for that week to relieve the stress on your system, and you will get mostly rid of the PMS symptoms. So, for example, the Norwegian national soccer team for women, they will use the Aura ring to be able to train according to their menstrual cycle.
Wow. That's next level stuff. That's why they're the athletes they are. So for someone like me, usually today is an off day. I'm recovering. Tomorrow will be my workout day. Yet I've had this happen. I'm like, I recovered, great sleep, everything. And I look and my strain score is high and I got a terrible rating for that day. Should I adjust or just try to find out why that happened to fix it later and not miss that workout? Because that's the other issue is, I've toned this down so much. Missing one workout day is kind of detrimental in my world.
I would try maybe for like a couple of months to listen more to the whoop and see what happens.
Okay.
Because in many cases, you need to give more time for recovery, and particularly after 40. Because I often say that until you're 40, your body takes care of you, but after you're 40, you need to take care of your body. And this is the reason why the best athletes, they cannot stay at the top of their game after they're 40. Our bodies are not recovering enough. And that is also shown in heart rate variability, that will go down quite steep from your 20, 25 down to your 40, and then it will flatten out as a sign that your body is just not as forgiving and will not help you as much building yourself stronger. It takes just a lot of more recovery time, downtime to build yourself stronger. So I would just test out, just to see, and maybe what is giving you the strain is not necessarily the exercise in itself. It may be other things. It may be that you're eating something you don't tolerate. Maybe you don't tolerate gluten, for example.
Yeah.
But I would say the Garmin is way better than the Whoop band, because it's a bit like, I compare it to it's like you go shopping in the supermarket for the whole week. And with the Whoop band, it's more like you're getting the total. You see the total sum of everything you've bought, but you don't know the prices for each item. With the Garmin, having these graphs 24/7, you can see exactly, okay, it was this situation at 10 o'clock that built the strain. That is where the strain was. Maybe from the shopping, So it's much more to micromanage your stress level like this. You really need the Garmin or the ECG monitor from Firstbeat, for example. And Firstbeat is the Finnish company that has made the algorithms for Garmin that the Garmin bought and put into their system.
Yeah.
So I think you would see it would be a lot easier for you using the Garmin rather than the Whoop.
I'll probably try that out, but on the Whoop, just looking at it right now, it does show a graph for strain.
It shows a graph of strain, during the day.
For like hourly.
Yeah, but it's quite
I just
cool.
never care. I just want the total score at the end of the day, but that's what you're teaching me. I need to look to see.
Yeah, so you can probably use it. It is not as precise. It doesn't have as many data points as Garmin has, so it will be a more crude graph that you see there, but it would tell you something. Yeah.
Okay. So now that we know to start paying attention to that, where you're stressing, trying out a little bit better recovery, do you have any like just general hacks of, if you're straining like that, besides avoidance, to add in like meditation, breathing, certain types of
Mhm.
exercise, cold therapy, is there anything that is known to like calm this
Mhm.
nervous system down more, get us the better HRV score? Because if you look
Yeah.
online and through social media, everyone is struggling to get their HRV score, which I know you're
Mhm.
not supposed to compare yourself to other people just as long as you're going up, but how do we get
Mhm.
up higher and higher? Like, what are some of the things?
Yeah. So breath work would be great. Make sure that you sleep enough, that you have 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep is important. Avoid late night meals. Try to have 3 or 4 hours from the last bite until you go to bed. Avoid late night exercise. Also, probably the same. You shouldn't do any heavy work 4 hours before you go to bed, for example. Breath work is important, in your daily life so that you can keep the stress down, so your body doesn't have to spend a lot of energy on the stress. Like if you have a situation, maybe you're driving to work, if you're commuting, you get stressed. You're burning a lot of energy there without getting anything back from it. Avoiding alcohol is probably really the most important one. That is the biggest stressor. According to Wu, alcohol is the biggest stressor. Number 3 is disease. And number 2 is quite relevant for you in California because that's altitude. So if you go up to the Rockies, that will probably tax your system a lot, going up to the altitude. So there are a lot of these kind of hidden stressors that you wouldn't know until you can see it on your heart rate.
Yeah. What about what everyone probably wants to do after a stressful moment? They get home, instead of breathing or meditating or doing something like that, they just want to watch a show. Is that per the lowering the stress? Who knows if that's great for
Mm,
you long term watching stuff, right? But can that
mm.
help calm your nervous system down, or is that not a good thing?
For some people, because some people would really relax, and it would probably depend what they see. Maybe if they see the news,
Oh,
they would be
right back
stressed.
up.
Yeah. If they see something else, they may be calm. And that is a good thing about the Garmin, that you would see it immediately that this will stress me or not. And many people would think that, oh, I'm eating this nice chocolate or ice cream or whatever. And they would find that that actually stresses them. So while they're lying there on the couch thinking that they're relaxing, what they're eating could be stressing them quite a lot.
Yeah. I feel like if you had the Garmin and you constantly are hitting that button, that could be stressful because you're always caring about what the score is too. Just like going to
Yeah,
like
but
the
you would,
doctor's office.
yeah, in the beginning, but you would get used to it.
Okay.
It's having a dashboard for your physiology. Just like in your car, you see your speed, you can see your body battery. That's a Garmin concept. So you would see how much energy do you have to spend this particular day. So it's like having a dashboard, like in your car, you see the outside temperature, your speeds, your RPMs maybe, and so on, and the distance to where you're going. And this is in the same way as in your car. This is a way to use artificial intelligence using movement, temperature, heart rate, these things, coupled with artificial intelligence, coupled with millions of users' data points,
Hmm.
and they will give you an estimate of how your physiology is running. Are you running smoothly? And you would have trouble using just your heart rate, because I know a lot of athletes would use just a resting heart rate and see if their resting heart rate is raised. That would be a sign that they are overreaching, overtraining. But the heart rate variability is a lot more sensitive. So I've seen athletes in an overreaching situation where the resting heart rate at night maybe changed from 42 to 44, just a minimal change.
Hmm.
But the heart rate variability can be like 40% down.
Yeah.
So it's much more sensitive to find out whether you're pushing yourself too hard.
Yeah. I've seen, and the reason why I still at least wear mine, and I didn't just do monthly, I signed up for the year, but hearing stories of people seeing metrics and be like, oh God, something is really wrong, going to the ER and they had like, a mini heart attack or something else that was going on. What do you say about that? Or what signs should we be watching on here for real serious
Yeah.
issues?
Yeah, you would see that if you have problems with your heart. If there's an infection coming,
Mhm.
it will tell you, for example, after a surgery, it could be a surprisingly long time until your body is back available to push yourself, in the gym. And also there's people finding out that because when the heart rate variability is low, it's a sign that your body is struggling with something. It could be a deficiency of iron, particularly for women. It could be a B12, a vitamin D deficiency. but it can also be cancer. So there's several people who have seen that their heart rate variability had dipped over time. They have been trying to relax, to recover and do everything right. It's still bad. The body's still struggling, going to the doctor and finding out, okay, it's cancer. And you wouldn't get cancer, or maybe in the beginning, when it's small, but your body wouldn't struggle with the cancer than the heart not showing it. Because any strain on your body will become visible in the heart rate. Your body has to work, at a higher level.
So what metric are you looking at when people are going through that? Say someone has like cancer. Is the HRV score just dropping like crazy, or are they just under high stress 24/7, or it's the combo?
Yeah, they're high stress. Yeah, you would see at night,
Okay.
you would see the curves on the Garmin that would be blue if you're in the parasympathetic mode. And the person may see that normally they would be blue, throughout the night or parts of the day. And then they will see that, okay, it's just orange all
Yeah.
over. It's stress day and night.
So
And
that's probably the easiest to notice is at night. You should be so calm and so peaceful.
yeah,
Those
yeah,
metrics should not be that bad while you sleep. Because during the day, it's
yeah,
kind of hard. I
yeah.
mean, all of us have a stressful life and do the best we can, but
Yeah, and even with a stressful life, just allowing yourself 5 minutes here and there for breath works to calm yourself down. So doing the breath work is kind of your brake pedal that
mhm.
you can use, because otherwise you're in the sympathetic state with the gas full throttle. And what you have control of is the breath. That is the brake pedal. And also, of course, cold exposure. So cold exposure is probably even more potent. So that's what can really break and slow down and get you into the parasympathetic mode. And that is why so many athletes use it to dampen inflammation so that they can tolerate more exercise. That is probably more important for technical sports, people who need a lot of time on the pitch to get the practice. Probably if you're just strength training, I've heard Andrew Huberman say that you shouldn't do cold exposure the first 4 hours after a workout, because
That's
that
what I was
would
going to ask you, because
slow
part of
down.
that
Yeah.
process is you want the inflammation
You want the
things
inflammation. So maybe you should do cold exposure
at the end
the
of the
day
day.
after,
Or
every
yeah,
other
next day.
day. So that could be a way to make the recovery more effective.
It sounds like definitely everyone's different. You got to be looking at these metrics and seeing what is causing each spike in stress when you're dropping on the
Absolutely.
HVs.
Absolutely. So many people contact me after the success of the book. The book has just been a wild success in Norway for a year and a half. And I get the information from so many people, different nervous systems and physiologies, and we're all individual. So it doesn't really matter what the average person responds to any stressor, like we are used to be in research. We will see how does the average react, but that doesn't need to mean anything to you, because
Yeah.
you're probably not average. And so this shows how you react to a certain thing: alcohol, food, training. And what is really important in exercise is that the VO2 max is very important. So beginners, they will probably overestimate their capacity. If they have a VO2 max, maybe of 30 or something, you don't tolerate exercise very well. You will need a lot of disappointingly amount of recovery to adjust for even a small strain if you have such a low VO2 max. If you have a good VO2 max, maybe 45 or 50, you can tolerate so much more exercise without needing the same amount of recovery.
Wow.
So that's an important number. I'm not sure if you get that number from Whoop, but from Garmin, you would get it.
Yeah. There's an easy step test too that I always used to have clients do for their VO2 max. It
Mhm.
takes a little work and
Okay.
some calculations, but it usually was pretty accurate
Yeah.
with what their doctor put them through too. So
It's easier with the Garmin. You would just
yeah.
number. So,
Well, cool. Well, Torkil, just like to thank you for coming on my show and giving
mm,
us your wealth of knowledge on this. I've got a ton
mm,
of things I need to start watching myself now, but for my audience, tell us about your book, how to get it, any other social media channels you have, or where would you
mm.
like my audience to be pointed to?
Yeah, my book is about the best advice on food, nutrition, on exercise, on sleep, on recovery, and alcohol, and all these things we've been talking about. So it's called The Post Cure. It's available anywhere, like on Amazon. It's also an audiobook for people who don't like to read, who want to work out and still learn. They can do that. So I'm on the Instagram, Dr. Torkil. We also have a website called thepostcure.com, where you can see a video lecture where I explain all these graphs, this blue and orange, and how the body responds to certain stressors. So that would be useful for people to see. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, as my audience
Mm.
always knows, I'll put all those links in the show notes so they can just click on them. But yeah, definitely all of us need to step up our game being over 40. Like you said, it's not like it was in our 20s and 30s. Our body does most everything for us. Now we have to help out our body. I love that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thanks again for being on the show. And I hope my audience at least checks out your website and some of the products you offer.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here and letting me talk about this. Thank you.